But we're going to start with England. And despite Thomas Tuchel's side facing two crucial World Cup qualifiers between now and Tuesday, the transfer saga of the summer was a hot topic of conversation at St George's Park today. That's because Newcastle's Dan Burn was the man to speak to the media as well as Tuchel. And the defender insists he bears no ill will Alexander Isak, who left St James's Park on Monday to join Liverpool. Let's go live to Rob Dorset, who's still at St George's Park for us. And Rob, Burn was the first Newcastle player to speak publicly about the Isak situation. So I guess it was no surprise when he was put up by England that he was going to get asked a few questions about Isak.
Yeah, and it's not normal protocol, to be honest. The FA and the players and the clubs don't like us talking to the players about very much club issues when they're away on international duty. It's not the done thing, but it was such a huge elephant in the room that we were talking to Dan Burn, and I felt we couldn't really not ask him about it, of course, because as you said in your introduction, we haven't heard from any Newcastle players yet since Alexander Isak moved to Liverpool on transfer deadline day, and about the entire saga which had carried on for a couple of months building up to that. Dan Burn, I think you have to give him huge credit. He's becoming a real leader in this England dressing room as much as he is a leader in the St James's Park dressing room right now. He's a safe pair of hands, but he's very eloquent in the way that he deals with some difficult issues, and he did exactly the same thing again today. And we've often wondered, haven't we, how players feel about the transfer business and how some of their teammates react when it becomes a bit acrimonious. Do they just chalk it up as, oh, look, it's football, everybody's got to make a living, they're trying to do the best for themselves, totally understand? Or do they feel much more like the Newcastle United supporters do, largely betrayed by Alexander Isak? They feel that he's blotted his legacy, despite winning Newcastle's first major trophy in several decades. Well, have a listen to what Dan Burn said, because I think he makes it pretty clear that Alexander Isak is still a friend of his, and he doesn't hold any grudges, doesn't hold any animosity towards the way he behaved.
I'm glad it's done. I think we wanted the transfer window to close just to have a bit of clarity on it. But listen, I've been in football long enough to understand that for a player, the careers are short and they've got things that they want to achieve. So for me, I'm happy that it's over. Alex is a mate, so it was a tough situation because you want him to be around and helping the team, but also understand for him what he needs to do personally. So listen, I've got nothing but sort of good wishes for Alex.
So yeah. No animosity towards
him? No animosity. I think, listen, obviously as a Newcastle fan, and you know what Newcastle fans are like, we're very protective of our club and we're City, and you want players to be there who want to play for Newcastle, and you don't want them to sort of naively think that there's anywhere else to go apart from playing at Newcastle. So I understand why our fans are frustrated. But as I said, I think I've been in the game long enough now to understand what goes on, and as I said, I wish Alex all the best apart from when we play Liverpool, obviously.
Dan Burn responds to Alexander Isak's bitter Liverpool saga. I'm glad it's done. Dan Burn was asked about his former Newcastle teammate, Alexander Isak, after the Swedish international striker completed a record-breaking deadline day move to Liverpool. Newcastle defender Dan Burn says there is no bad blood towards Alexander Isak after the striker's drawn-out summer transfer saga. Isak made it clear his time at St James's Park was over, eventually completing a deadline day move to Liverpool for $125 million. The Magpies have moved on, adding Nick Woltemade and Jon Wissa to their ranks as they aim to replace Isak's goals. England. International Burn was asked about his former teammate when speaking to media ahead of a World Cup qualifier against Andorra, and made his feelings clear. I'm glad it's done, Burn told reporters. We wanted the transfer window to shut just to get a bit of clarity on it. I have been in football long enough to understand that for a player, careers are short. For me, it is a tough situation because Alex is a mate, so you want him to be around helping the team, but I have nothing but good wishes for Alex. No animosity towards him. You know what Newcastle fans are like. We are very protective of your club and your city, and want players who want to play for Newcastle. You don't want them naively think there is anywhere else to play but Newcastle. So I understand why our fans are frustrated, but as I say, I have been in the game long enough now to understand what goes on. Isak was signed too late to feature for Liverpool in the victory over Arsenal, which left Arne Slot's side out on their own at the top of the table. He could make his debut against Burnley, though, with the Reds traveling to Turf Moor on September 14th before beginning their Champions League campaign a few days later. Before that, Isak has the small matter of 2 World Cup qualifiers with Sweden. Jon Dahl Tomasson's team take on Slovenia and Kosovo in a double-header during the September break as they look to make up for missing out on the 2022 tournament. Bern and England also face 2 qualifiers in the space of a couple of days. Thomas. Tuchel's team are up against Andorra on Saturday before heading to Serbia for an away game on Tuesday. It's been a long journey to get here, Isak told club media in his first comments as a Liverpool player. But I'm super happy to be a part of this team, this club, and everything it stands for. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just happy it's done and that I can get back to work. I'm looking forward to seeing my teammates and the fans and getting back out there. Liverpool legend Luis Suarez breaks silence with groveling apology after spitting on rival coach. Luis Suarez spat at a member of Seattle Sounders coach staff after Inter Miami's Leagues Cup final defeat was followed by a scuffle involving both sets of players. Luis Suarez has apologized after spitting at a Seattle Sounders coach after his Inter Miami side was beaten 3-0 in the Leagues Cup final. Both sets of players were involved in a scuffle following the end of the game, with Suarez first holding Sounders midfielder Obed Vargas around the neck, before the unsavory incident involving the Sounders coach. Video footage clearly showed former Liverpool star Suarez spitting in the direction of the coach, and he made no excuse for his behavior in an apology issued on Instagram. First of all, I want to congratulate the Seattle Sounders for their Leagues Cup victory, Suarez wrote. But more importantly, I want to apologize for my behavior at the end of the game. It was a moment full of tension and frustration when things took place at the end of the game that shouldn't have occurred. But that doesn't justify my reaction. I made a mistake, and I'm sincerely sorry. That's not the image that I want to portray in front of my family, who suffer for my errors, and Inter Miami doesn't deserve to be affected by this either. I feel bad for what happened, and I did not want to miss this opportunity to recognize it and ask everyone for forgiveness who felt poorly about what I did. We know there is still a lot of season to play for, and we're going to work together in order to accomplish the goals that this club and its fans deserve. A hug to all. Speaking in the immediate aftermath of the incident, Inter Miami boss Javier Mascherano, who was one of Suarez's teammates at Barcelona, appeared to excuse Suarez's reaction, suggesting that his players may have been provoked after the final whistle. Nobody likes that at the end of the game there are this kind of actions, Mascherano said. Then there is a reaction. There may be a provocation, but I do not know what happened. Suarez is no stranger to controversy, having been the guilty party in a number of unsavory flashpoints throughout his career. The 38-year-old received bans for biting Otman Bakal, Branislav Ivanovic, and Giorgio Chiellini, while playing for Ajax, Liverpool, and Uruguay, respectively. Earlier in his career, Suarez also received an 8-game suspension from the FA for racially abusing Patrice Evra during a game between Liverpool and Manchester United in 2011. Liverpool gets Alexis Allister boost after injury hit start to season. As internationals get underway, Liverpool has received welcome news from the Argentina camp. It comes after a disrupted start to Alexis Allister's season. Liverpool welcomed back Alexis Allister against Arsenal. Arne Slot was briefly spared a selection headache by the need to deploy Dominik Szoboszlai at right back, but will soon find himself having to make some tough calls in the middle of the park. With the arrival of Florian Wirtz, Liverpool has a surplus of elite options who prefer to play in the midfield three. Allister, Szoboszlai, and Ryan Gravenberch thrived in that unit last season, but at least one will presumably drop out most weeks in order to accommodate Wirtz. Allister had been the one to miss out in the first 2 games, as he made his way back from injury. But Slot has a major dilemma on the horizon now that everyone is fit. Connor Bradley made his return for Northern Ireland, and Jeremy Frimpong is due back after the break, likely marking the end of Szoboszlai's stint in the back four. Yet this is a welcome problem for Slot to have. Over a long campaign across multiple fronts, everybody will get chances, and it is far better for the manager to have a full complement to choose from. As such, Liverpool will have been relieved by a boost from the Argentina camp. Allister was called up despite his recent fitness issues, but he was left on the bench for the 3-0 win over Venezuela. Strangely enough, this was not a concession by Lionel Scaloni to Allister's injury-hit start to the campaign. Instead, Liverpool was the beneficiary of some travel chaos. Alexis Allister arrived late, and I don't think he'll make the team because he barely trained, Scaloni revealed before the match. It appears that an issue with a KLM flight forced the midfielder to divert to Paris before touching down in Argentina. It meant that Allister was a spectator for what is expected to be Lionel Messi's send-off on home soil. The legend of the sport has not ruled out featuring at the World Cup in 2026, but is not expected to appear competitively in Argentina again. Naturally, Messi marked the occasion with a brace. Only an offside flag denied him a hat-trick in a 3-0 win over Venezuela. That maintained Argentina's 7-point advantage at the top of the World Cup qualifying table. It has already booked its place at next summer's tournament, and Allister is likely to be an important figure as the team looks to retain the title it earned in Qatar. With that on the horizon, he will be even more motivated to ensure he holds onto his spot at Anfield. The hope will be that the strength of the competition brings out the best in everyone. Along with Wirtz, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch, Allister is also fighting for a place with Curtis Jones. The academy graduate changed the game when he came on against Arsenal, affording Liverpool more control and composure. One name no longer in the mix is Harvey Elliott, who completed a deadline day move to Aston Villa. Liverpool will bank $47 million, $35 million, once an obligation to buy is activated, matching the fee it paid for Allister in the summer of 2023. Allister is likely to be involved in Argentina's next match, which comes against Ecuador next week. Liverpool will be grateful for the unexpected reduction of his workload and will hope he returns to Anfield unscathed.